Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of this stream. I hope you enjoyed the new intro and the thumbnail. I spent way too much time to create the thumbnail today and I had so much fun doing it. So it started all with a prompt in Gemini, and then I asked it to deconstruct the entire thing, to reassemble it in Keynote, yeah, so also the streaming software is no longer OBS, but Meld Studio, and it is great. I can only recommend it. It's able to do lots of fantastic things. For example, it has, these really amazing transitions like this one. So we also should probably refresh the chat window. All right, let me send a message so that we get rid of all the lorem ipsums. That's ridiculous. Here you go. Okay, ignore the lorem ipsums for the moment. And if you're on the stream, say hi so that we get some real content there. Also, one thing that I'm really missing in Meld Studio is I'm currently looking at that screen, but there is nothing that I can see because Meld doesn't have a projector. So typically when I used OBS, my computer is down here. I had a projector so that it would display what's going out on the stream up there, but that's not possible on Meld Studio. But anyways, so what are we going to do today? I thought we should try out using something called Pickle Rick. So if you haven't heard about Pickle Rick before, I even brought a pickle. So if you haven't heard of Pickle Rick before, let's take a quick look here, and then we can get started. So Pickle Rick is an extension for Gemini CLI. So the idea is that you give Pickle Rick a prompt and it will start building, and it will only stop building once what it should build is complete. So it basically hooks into the agent loop of Gemini CLI, and whenever Gemini CLI says, I'm finished here, Pickle Rick will say, well, you're not, and it will just go another cycle in the loop. So and that is why they put this warning up here. They say, use at your own risk. This is a fun side project, so it's not an official Google product. It involves autonomous code modification and shell execution. While safety guardrails are in place, the agent may behave unexpectedly and consume a significant number of tokens. So that's something we should keep in mind. And let's see what it can do. So as an overview, so whenever you build something and you have an agent that autonomously does something, then you should always provide some sort of guidance. And the guidance here is a PRD. And this is a product requirements document, so that will tell the agent what you want to do. So for example, you could say, I want to build a calculator application and it needs to support the 4 basic ways to handle numbers, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And that can become a PRD that's slightly more complex than just saying, well, we want to support those 4 ways to compute. And then an agent or a person can implement that. So then the second step, or the second piece of the whole story here is we need to break down these PRD thing into some sort of tickets. And then there needs to be some research to figure out what is this code base about, potentially do some research as to how to implement that. Then there needs to be some planning, and then we get into the implementation phase. And then those of you who have done any sort of extreme programming, you know that after you implemented something, you always go in and refactor something to clean up your code, for example. So, and Pickle Rick is a development methodology based on continuous AI agent loops. And you might have heard about the Ralph Wiggum technique, and that's very, very similar. So Ralph Wiggum basically says, well, if we execute an agent inside a bash loop, then we can let it run until it implements a complete software system. So you use Pickle Rick by using a / command. You give a description, and then there is a completion promise. I haven't yet understood what the completion promise is here. So I experimented today in the afternoon. I didn't provide a promise, and it still stopped after a couple of rounds. That's something that I need to explore as well. And by the way, so I know not much about Pickle Rick other than it exists, and I thought, it would be a fun experiment to use it to build something. So I think, yeah, so you can specify a number of parameters. So for example, here we can specify the number of iterations, and the default is 5. So that means that the agent will go in 5 iterations. And you can also specify a timeout. 60 minutes is the default. And then you can specify a default timeout for the workers. So the whole technique builds on a whole set of agents that run in parallel and are being controlled by a master or an overseer agent, if you will. Okay, here we go. So completion promise text only stop when the agent outputs promise text. Okay. And then you can apparently also stop the loop while it's going. Cool. So let's talk about what I want to implement. So in the previous seasons of this live stream, we've been working on an application called Sophia, which is a read it later app. And as part of this read it later app, there is a screen that allows you to read an article, and it simplifies the article so that it's easier to read this article. And I just realized that I should probably show you, because if you're new here, you might not have seen this before. So let's quickly do that. Okay. Okay. Okay, here we've got the Xcode window. And let me just quickly run the application. We'll run it on an iPhone 17 Pro. maybe I can also try to share my screen so you can see the real app. Let's see if that works. Yeah, here we go. Well, in the background, the simulator is booting up. So this window here is my is a mirror of my phone, and you can see all the stuff that I added myself. So, for example, here this is a GitHub repository, or this one here is a Medium article that a colleague of mine wrote. Yeah, so this is how the app looks on the real phone. And I'm going to put this into the background because I don't want you to see all the notifications that I get. But instead, we can go and take a look at what happens if we add something to the app. So let's assume I'll go to, oh, what's Swiftology? All right, so this is Alex Ozun's blog, and let's take a look at this article here. So this is a long article. It does seem interesting, but I don't have time because I'm on the live stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, and then, oh, my mouse is so slow today. Hello. You know what? This happened last time as well. Hello. So somehow my mouse is pretty janky. Okay. Got a couple of breakpoints here. Okay, anyways, so let's turn them off. And then continue. Okay, come on. You can do it. I know you can. So the last time I had issues like that, the reason was that I had, I think the Bluetooth stack, sorry, the USB stack on the second computer was messing up. So I might have to, let's try this. I'm going to disconnect this real quick. I promise I'll be back. Back, screen is back. Do I get controller back as well? So because that's important. If I don't get this one back, let's see. So it's always a good idea to restart your entire stack before you go on a stream. But not to worry, I have another cable. So this should be fine. Yeah, here we go. Perfect. Okay. Well, almost perfect because I can't read it. Okay. Okay. Let's do a quick check. Yep, there we are. So, and the mouse is moving faster. That's great. So turn off the breakpoints, start the application, and then I can't paste this. I have no idea. So a couple of weeks ago, my simulator stopped accepting paste. So I can't paste anything. Did this happen to anybody of you before? So Swiftology. So if you know why this happens, do let me know because it's really annoying. Okay, so here we have the same article. So let's put it into the application. Click on the share menu. The application shows up. It reads the metadata. And now I can add it to the application. And now it should show up here. And now we've got this simplified article here. So this is not too bad, but if we go and do something that's slightly more complicated, let's go to the New York Times. And oh yeah, so they want us to sign up. Okay, let's take this one here. So this is probably going to be a problem, right? Because I'm not subscribed, but let's try it anyways. So share, add, and it's not even able to get the metadata. Wow. Okay, let's try a different site. Let's try a German news magazine. And let's try to find an article that is free. So all the ones that have a plus are not free. So this one should work. Okay. Share, go into the app. It can read the metadata, add, and go back here. And now you can see that it's simplified, but you know, it's not perfect. So that is what I'm going to, or what I'm trying to improve. So, and what I use in the application, let's take a look at the code. So we have a couple of bundles here, sorry, packages, and we've got a custom web view that we use to display the articles. And this is using Reader. So if we take a look at this, so it is a package called Reader, and this is an open source package. Let's see if we can find if we can find it. So here we go. This is the package that I'm using. It's not bad, but let's see if we can improve. So, and this probably uses the Readability SDK, right? So this is something that Mozilla built one time, and it is a JavaScript library that gives you a readable version of a HTML page. And they have a bunch of tests here. So they've got lots of test pages. For example, I think there is a Wikipedia page. Let's see. Yeah, so we've got a bunch of Wikipedia pages. So what they did is they downloaded the HTML, and then they've got a simplified version of the HTML. And then the test tries to figure out if, when I take the source and inject it into the library, it will yield the expected output. So my idea is to do the same and tell Pickle Rick that we want to re-implement the Readability SDK for Swift, but more modern and more powerful. So I'm in my folder here. So I'll go into the livestream folder so that we know that this is nicely separated. And then let's call it Readability Kit. And then inside, I'm going to start Gemini. Before you can use Pickle Rick, you need to install it. So let's take a look at how you do that. So we've got Pickle Rick is a Gemini extension. So extensions are similar to skills, but they, it's very specific to Gemini CLI, and you can install them using Gemini extensions install, and then you provide the name of the extension. So I've done this before, so it's already in here. And when I type the / command, I can see a bunch of additional / commands that are available here. So for example, /model, that is a / command that's built into Gemini. So that is a built-in command. But Ticket Manager or Roofless Refactorer or PRD Drafter, these are all commands that Pickle Rick brought with it. So, and then we've got the pickle command here as well. So let's see how we can do this. So /pickle, and then we need to describe our task and then completion promise. So I think what would be a good idea is to start with some base. I'll actually go and let me do that in a separate window off screen first. So I'm a big fan of using Gemini to get stuff done. And then let's also get our trusty super whisper in place. Here we go. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to use Gemini to help me create a rough description of what we want to do here, right? So, hello, I want to re-implement the Mozilla Readability SDK, but for Swift. I also want it to be more modern, and it should support modern-day web pages. So my idea is to take all the existing tests and test fixtures that we can find in the Readability SDK, and I'm going to provide the GitHub URL here. So let's actually find this. So we've got the Mozilla Readability repository here, and I'm going to copy that and put it here. Can you please help me draft a PRD that I can pass to the Pickle Rick extension in Gemini CLI? So another thing that I want, so I in addition to the library itself, I also want to have a UI. So I want a web view that is capable of nicely rendering that. And in addition to just rendering the text like it does here, where are we? Like here, I want to be able to have some sort of menu where the user can fine-tune the representation. So for example, they might not be happy with this very basic text, so they might not like sans serif fonts. They might prefer serif fonts. And for example, they might want to use Times New Roman to read the text, or they might prefer a slightly more colorful background. For example, slight, maybe some beige color, for example, and things like that, or slightly larger or slightly bigger text. So all of these are things that we should implement in the viewer as well. And you might have seen this in some sort of read it later apps. So in addition to the engine that extracts readable HTML from the web pages that we pass into the SDK, I also want to implement a viewer that is capable of displaying the readable text. This should be using a web view and probably a native web view. And it should offer some form of configurability for the user so that the user can choose the font, the size, the background colors, the foreground color, and things like that. Okay. So I think that's quite good. And we can now go ahead and have it generate a PRD. And it already knows about Pickle Rick. So now we've got our PRD here. So Swift Readability SDK and native viewer. It's a high-performance modern Swift implementation of the Mozilla readability algorithm to extract clutter-free content from HTML. We've got our core engine that uses DOM parsing, scoring logic, modern web support, metadata extraction. We want to use a test-driven development strategy, and we will have a viewer, and that has a bunch of configurable options. Yeah, we will be using injected CSS to do the formatting. And then, oh yeah, so because there might be hyperlinks in the web pages, we'll need to capture when the user taps on that so that you can ask the user, hey, you clicked on a link that might lead to an external web page. What do you want to do? Do you want me to open that in Safari or Chrome in your default browser? Or do you want me to do that in the built-in browser in the application? Or do you want me to download that article as well for you? You know, all of those things. Okay, and then technical architecture, that's good. Okay, I want this package to be named Swift Readability Kit. All the other things look good to me. Can you give me a purity as a markdown block? Good. So while it's working, I'll quickly jump to the console here. And I'm going to open the current folder in anti-gravity so that we can do a couple of things. For example, I want to paste this PRD. Okay, so here is our PRD as a markdown block. We can copy that, and then I'm going into anti-gravity, and I'm going to paste the new file, and I'll call this prd.md, and I'll paste this here. Save this. Let's take a quick look. Okay. It's interesting because it did change what it showed us, right? So I've refined the structure to be highly actionable, emphasizing the TDD approach with the Mozilla fixtures and the architectural split between the engine and the UI. Yeah, I think this is okay. Good. So with that, let's go into the Gemini CLI and start Pickle Rick, and let me look at the command again. So it's, no, this one. Slash, oh, you know, it can be as easy as that. Implement Swift Readability Kit. You will find a basic PRD in add prd.md. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so it wants to activate a skill. So do you remember how I told you that an extension is different than a skill? So Gemini extensions can contain multiple skills, and that's what's happening here. You can see that we have the Pickle Rick extension here, and there are a bunch of skills apparently, and now it wants to load the Pickle Rick persona. So we're going to allow this for the session. And then yeah, we'll allow running node. We've got up to 5 iterations, up to 60 minutes. And I'm just going to allow everything. Okay, it's got a personality. I need to see what garbage you've written in prd.md. Oh yeah. So the interesting thing is that it has its own PRD drafter. So that typically would jump in and write a PRD when I say something like, oh, can you please implement an authentication module and something like that. But now that we already have a PRD, let's see what it does with it. I'm done reading your adorable little markdown file. I've taken its primitive concepts and forged a God tier product requirement document. It's comprehensive, it's ruthless, and it's being written to disk right now. Then I'm updating the session state to move this snail's pace project into the breakdown phase. Watch and weep, Jerry. Okay, another thing that we will do is in this folder here, we can see the sessions that this thing is working on. So I'm going to open this in another window, and I'm going to open this in VS Code so that we have an easier time separating what's what. Okay, so here is VS Code, and this is the state that the Pickle Rick extension uses to keep track of what it's doing between the different iterations. So let's run this. Oh, yeah. So it now breaks down the PRD into tickets, and it's using a ticket manager skill. In the background here, we can see that we've got our PRD, and that seems to be so this is a rewritten PRD, because you can see that Pickle Rick is the stakeholder. Okay, so I should probably figure out how to activate YOLO mode. Somebody told me how to do that. I'm going to just allow this for the session and then quickly have a look at Gemini CLI turn on YOLO mode. I think I thought there was a shortcut. Is there not? Also, Xcode wants me to approve that I'm happy to have anti-gravity act as a MCP client, which is completely unrelated to what we're doing here, but let me just accept that for now. Okay, we can't queue /commands. That's unfortunate. I'm just going to ask Gemini, how can I turn on YOLO mode in Gemini CLI using a shortcut? Okay, there is no shortcut, so we would have to do it using the settings or on the command line. Anyways. Okay, so this is working, and it says it's got the ticket. So let's go into VS Code and take a look at what we've got so far. So this is a folder that the extension uses to manage its work, and we can see that it's created a bunch of tickets, and this looks like it's using Linear as its ticket engine. So I haven't installed Linear. I don't know if there is a CLI version of Linear that works on text tickets, or if that's just a mock. But it uses the tickets here. So for example, this ticket here, implement SRK engine and parsing logic. And then we've got the problem to solve, which is need to parse raw HTML, apply readability scoring algorithms to identify main content, and output clean HTML. Then it describes the solution. Implement the engine using a Swift native parser like Swift Soup. Port the readability.js scoring logic, and then we've got implementation details. So, and then we've got more tickets here, more plans, and we can see that the individual workers have their own log, right? So we can see how this worker here did work on something, and we see the log output. So the worker claims to have finished. We'll see about that. Okay, let's continue. In the meantime, let's see if what we have in our package folder. So here in anti-gravity, I can see what Pickle Rick has generated for us. So if you remember, all I pasted into this folder is this PRD. And we have a package Swift file. We've got a configuration object here for the font, for the themes, and for the font faces. And we have got a model to represent an article. Okay, so far so good. And now I think it's trying to compile, so to see if the code it generates actually compiles. That's definitely a good idea. Cool. So it's found out that the code compiles, and it marked the ticket as done. So that is probably this ticket here, right? No, this is still in to do. Oh, this one here is done. Okay. Okay. So this is what we saw. It implemented those two objects or types in Swift. So the next task is to work on the engine. Okay, so it looks like those folders here represent the individual parts of the SDK that it's working on. So ticket underscore models, this is all of the types that we need to represent an article or the configuration. And now it is working on the engine, and that is the part of the code that takes HTML input and returns simplified HTML output. So apparently it's reviewing the ticket at the moment. We can probably take a look at what is going on here. So typically, you would probably just start Pickle Rick and then go away and do something else. So what we're doing here is a bit atypical, right? So not only are we sitting around to see what it is doing, but we're also, using VS Code to inspect its inner workings at the same time. So that is completely not typical. I could probably go off and say, okay, I want this rendering engine, I want an authentication module, and I want a chat module, and have Pickle Rick work on these 3 things individually at the same time. And then at one point, once it's finished, come back and then ask another agent to integrate those libraries into my application. But for now, I think it's fun to observe what's going on and what's happening. So that's really quite interesting. Okay, so we've got tests. So this is, it looks like a very simple test. So what it does is it defines HTML. So we've got a test article with content and a sidebar. So typically you would only be interested in this main content here, and you wouldn't be interested in the sidebar because the sidebar probably is a navigation bar or something like that. And then it sets up the engine, passes in the HTML, and asks the engine to extract the HTML, and then it will verify that it successfully extracted the test article up here, and that the content contains main content, which is here. So that's a pretty simple test. And let's take a look at the engine it's implemented so far. And what it does is it's using Swift Soup to parse the HTML and then select a bunch of tags from the document. Oh, it removes them. Look at that. So it's easier to read. Yeah, so it removes any scripts, any styles, any no scripts, any metadata things, and also links that might link to any CSS files or script files from the document, and then it tries to find all the paragraphs, goes through all the paragraphs, and then it looks for class names to identify them. Okay. All right, so it's now working on the SwiftUI viewer. That's quick. I'm not entirely sure if that implementation is strong enough. But we'll see. Yeah, so since it said it's working on the viewer, here is the ticket for the viewer, a native SwiftUI component to render the cleaned HTML with customizable themes and font settings. So it wants to wrap WK web view via UI view representable. So I don't think that this is such a smart idea, because there are more modern ways to do it. So let's take a look. So because we now have, oh wait, oh, that's something that somebody else implemented. Yeah, so we shouldn't be searching for WK web view, but probably just for web view. So here we go. So web view is a SwiftUI view that has been introduced in iOS 26 Plus. And since this application only targets iOS 26 Plus, we should be using this one here instead, right? And you can see that it works by passing in a URL, but I think you can also pass in, yeah, you can pass in a web page, and the web page can be passed a HTML string so that you can render the HTML. So let's take a look at that. Yeah. So here is how you would set up a web page, right? So, and I'm curious if Pickle Rick is smart enough to say, well, hold on for a moment there. WK Web View is not the modern way to do things. But it seems like it probably does that. Okay. Ooh, okay. So it says the viewer compiles, the worker actually built the web view, and it passed the build check. And then I've orchestrated the construction of Swift Readability Kit. Every atomic implementation ticket has been processed by a multi-worker, audited by me, and merged into the main line. The epic is done. I'm tearing down the session and outputting the complete promise so we can finally close the recursive hellscape. So, so it thinks it is done. So let's take a quick look at the result. So here is our package. It has a dependency on Swift Soup. We've got one test. We've got a reader view that uses UI view representable. It has one model to represent an article with a title, byline, content, excerpt, site name, and we've got a configuration for the font, the theme, and the font face, and we've got our engine. So this is all very, very minimal, I want to say. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to ask Pickle Rick to implement a sample application. Thanks for that. can you please implement a sample application and put it into the examples folder in this package? Good. So the problem here is that models or LLMs typically don't know how to create Xcode projects. So I'm really curious what happens here. Because the Xcode project file is an XML file, and models typically are notoriously bad at implementing or generating them. So typically the best way to do it, or there are many ways to do it. One way is to just create a project file yourself and then tell the model, hey, I've got an example project and I am using Xcode's reasonably new folder feature. That means that you don't have to edit the Xcode project file by every single file that you want to make part of the project, but you can just put the files into the folders and Xcode will pick them up automatically. Another way would be to use a tool like Tourist or some other project generator so that you don't have to use Xcode projects at all. I've also sometimes seen models use Ruby-based command line tools to manage the Xcode project, which is the same strategy that CocoaPods uses, for example. So I'm going to create an examples directory. So it does that, and then, okay. Okay, here we have our, see, it wasn't able to create an Xcode project. So here is another strategy. It just generates a package. That is interesting. Yeah, that might work as well. And then it, oh, interesting. So to run it, simply navigate to the examples folder and double click on the sample app.swift PM. Really? Well, there is no, oh, that's interesting. Do you see that? So it's actually called sample app.swift PM. So, that's this folder, and I need another folder. Readability kit, livestream. Okay, so here is our Piner. Double click. Okay, here is Xcode with Swift PM, and it has a compile error saying it can't resolve the package. Let's try to build. Cannot build without schemes. True. Yeah, so this does not work. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to quit Xcode. And then let me install flowdeck. So I will quickly jump out of our session here, and then flowdeck -I. Oh yeah, that might be a good idea. So okay, so I've got an empty folder now, and now let's do flowdeck -I, create a new Xcode project, sample app, bundle identifier, dev.freeze.readability kit.sample. This is an iOS app. iPhone 17 Pro with iOS 26.4. I want a debug build, setup complete. So now if I run this app, it should start up on the simulator. And this will be a, here we go. This will be the flowdeck sample application, right? So it's basically just a simple one-screen thing that doesn't do anything else. But this is super useful for us. So one, I'm going to quit out of here. And I'm going to start flowdeck over here, because that is super useful to have. And then I can go back into Gemini, and I can, is it -- resume? So that should resume our, oh, no previous sessions found for this project. Oh yes, because we're in the examples folder. Let's go back one level. This is good, and then resume. Okay, cool. So we are back where we left off. And then I'm going to tell it that we created a new sample app. All right, so I added a new sample application because you failed at creating a Xcode project. I know you think that you can't fail, but you did. Please use this sample app to implement a test, not a test, to implement a sample for the Swift Readability kit. So let's see if Pickle Rick is still active. I guess it's not. So maybe we need to re-enable it. So it seems that Gemini is kicking in and it's doing its thing here. Okay. Oh. See, that's, now it's trying to use a Ruby gem called xcodeproj to edit the Xcode project. I don't want this. So instead, let's go back into Pickle. Continue implementing the sample app in the examples folder. I set up a basic Xcode project, and you can just add new files. We're using Xcode folders. Okay, let's see if it's smart enough to understand that, or if we need to add a couple of Swift and SwiftUI skills, because at the moment we don't have any skills installed. Yep. Yep. Yeah, so it needs to reload the last state, apparently. Let's see what kind of mess they made. Okay. Also, let's see if this is a new session. Did I copy that? Okay. Yes, you can continue. So this is a new session. Do you see that? The session ID is different. So let's take a quick look at what's going on in that new session here. Yeah, so we've got a new PRD for the sample app. Yeah, but it understood that it needs to use SRK engine. So that's good. That's good, good, good. Okay, back to our Pickle Rick. Yes, please go on. Yeah. I accidentally pasted this here. Yes, please go on. So I'll just remove this. So I assume that whatever we end up with for today is not going to be the final state. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this here is to understand how agentic engineering works and how it can be used to build applications. And, you know, a readability engine is, ooh, that's interesting. Okay. A readability engine is moderately complex. So it's not that simple, but it's not overly complex because, you know, it's literally get input, do something to the input, produce output. So that's easy enough, I feel. And there's already an existing implementation. So it should be moderately easy to tell an agent, here is a JavaScript implementation, take that and produce a Swift implementation. But the question is, what is the best way to do that? So, and maybe by pointing Pickle Rick at the PRD that we produced in the beginning, led it down a path that doesn't yield the result that we're looking for, but maybe it does, right? So, and then all of that are things that I want to find out. What is the best way to use agentic engineering to build smaller and medium-sized pieces of code? Okay, so we need a UI. Yeah, so it wants to refactor the UI to make sure that we've got a text field where the user can input a URL, a button to trigger the logic, and then the SK reader view that should render the output. I'm curious. So have you used stuff like Pickle Rick or Wiggum before? If you have, tell me. And actually, I'm going to set up a quick poll. Okay, there is your poll. If you are in the chat, please select one, and then we'll see what most people have been using, or if this is something that you haven't looked at before, and then maybe you got inspired by this live stream to take a look at and see if this is something that helps you in your daily work. So I'm gonna... That's interesting. It doesn't show up on mobile. Can I vote myself? No, I can't. Fair enough. Okay, so the part, yes, I allow this. So let's see how far we are with the sample application. So that still looks like the sample that flowdeck generated for us. But apparently it did implement something. What is it? Okay, downloading HTML asynchronously. That apparently is implemented somewhere. So now it's working on the UI. Our ticket looks like this. So the content view currently shows a placeholder screen. It needs to accept the URL and so on and so forth. Here it describes what it wants to do, more details about the implementation, and then research findings. So stuff like it needs to import readability kit. The fetch logic needs to handle async tasks. There needs to be a dismissal mechanism. And we need to purge the boilerplate. And here is more research. So that's where all of this is coming from, apparently. And this is the plan it's currently working on. Yeah. So we still haven't got any updates to the sample application, but let's see. Oh, something changed. Okay, so we've got an updated navigation title at least. Here is the reader view. Okay, cool. So we're getting somewhere. Oh, while we're waiting, I've got another question for you. So let me quickly change the layout. So do you find this kind of layout more useful or this? So full screen but an overlay, or full screen and the speaker avatar on the left, like here, and the chat up there. So let me know what you think. I'm going to leave this on for a moment here, and then we can decide. Okay, so it wants to commit the changes. Interesting. And it seems it's finished. Good. So I'll go to our flowdeck window. Oh no, this doesn't compile. Let's open this in. Can we open this project? Open in Xcode. Build failed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this manually. Add local. And then add this. Okay. Can compile. It still failed. Okay. We want to run this on a simulator. Did it still fail? Let's try this again. Okay, so maybe I forgot to add it to Yes, I forgot to add it. Build failed. And what's the problem here? That's interesting. I thought that this was equatable. This is equatable. Oh, this is sendable, not equatable. Okay. Right. So let's see. I think it will not be able to figure out the problems because it doesn't know how to. Oh yeah, it does. So it uses Xcode build to build the project. All right, so Dan prefers full screen with overlay because it's like this, because the text is larger. Is that the reason, Dan? Also, can you, if you are happy to, can you share what kind of screen you're watching this on? Is it your computer monitor or an iPad, or are you on a phone even? Right, so it has understood that it needs to make SK article conform to equatable. So let's see if that works. And then I should probably also install the flowdeck skills into the project. Yeah, because it now says, yeah, this compiles fine, but that really doesn't help us much. Okay, so build succeeded. And now let's see what we get. Cool. So let's quickly go to Safari. Okay, let's take this article here, copy, paste. So the good news is it did do something, but I'm not entirely convinced by this. Let's go to my own blog and take this article here, share, copy, paste, fetch. Okay, so this is not too bad. But, and here's the thing. So this part here, okay, so there's many issues. So this, for example, I guess there is some line that's pretty long. Yeah, so this line here, that's a very long line. So we need to tell the view that we want to word wrap long line. So that's one thing. Another thing is it doesn't load images, and we've got this kind of like ad at the end where I promote my newsletter, and that should not be in the readable version of the article, right? So I want all kinds of like ads to be removed, and likewise those links to all the other articles down here. So that should be removed. So I need to go to the next meeting, unfortunately. So this is something that we'll have to continue working on. So let's quickly jump to this. So, oh, unfortunately, well, no, it's still doing the right thing. So we will continue working on this. Next week, March 23rd, same time, same channel. Come join me and we'll continue implementing this. I don't know if I'll just continue working on this code base or if I'm going to throw it away and try starting from scratch. But you know, this is very exciting, and I want to end up with a powerful implementation that does what my application needs. All right, and with that, I hope you enjoyed what we did today, and I hope to also see you again next week. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one.